Well, the last words we heard is that there is a representative, lawyers in fact, of which I love, for hit the ground running, and that's exactly what we did here on the Law and Crime Network when I sat in this seat. As you know, we are the afternoon session, we are the Law and Crime Network, and I'm here with one of my favorite guests of all time, Julie Rendelman, a former district attorney in Manhattan, now a defense attorney, and we have a lot to discuss. Julie Rendelman on Robert Durst. So that was Chip Lewis, a great lawyer from the great state of Texas. He talked about subterfuge. He talked about cherry picking. He said the production company who made the film Jinx, which basically got Robert Durst indicted, in my opinion, can't use the journalist shield law as both a shield and a sword, as they did when they make the movie. They have to turn over. What they have learned are 3 more interviews of Robert Durst that are hit the floor. I have a floor down here. They're not on my floor, but we'll be looking for them. What say you?
So, it's interesting. When this came about, I always had issues with what they used in terms of it all began with the statements he made, that everyone thinks is very inculpatory, and that is the comments he makes. I think when he walks off to the bathroom.
He goes off to the bathroom. He's still hard mic'd, right?
I killed them all. I killed them all. I guess I killed them all. They got me. And I always had issues.
I did it, of course, right? Yeah.
Between you and me, I thought it was kind of I thought he was being sarcastic.
Right.
I thought so. I'm not so sure that it gets them where they want to. But their position is basically, here is a company that was working with the DAs, working with the police department, and they were so intertwined that they were providing the police department with information, providing the, police department with information regarding a letter that was anonymous that seemed clearly to indicate, based on other evidence that was found, that it was Robert Durst that probably sent that letter. And so they're saying because they work so intimately together that therefore they are not a separate unit, but really a part and parcel of the police department.
Julie, they gave the prosecutors a presentation by PowerPoint.
I think they did a PowerPoint presentation.
Correct. I don't want to promote PowerPoint, but they did a presentation on the computer and said, "Hey, this is the reasons why you should indict him."
Right. And so, but that's their argument. And so they're saying you can't act like you're a separate entity, but yet do all these things together. And basically, that they weren't there really to do a documentary. They were there to find evidence against him. And so, therefore, they're not allowed to have like the exception of being journalists when they're really not acting as such.
So you know what? We're going to listen to a clip from the last hearing when we were discussing these issues in greater depth from Mr. Durst's attorney, and then I'm going to have a lot more to discuss with Julie Rendelman about whether or not the privilege law shield law was meant to apply in this kind of situation where you're promoting an indictment of somebody to get publicity. Julie Rendelman, I have a question to ask you, but before that, I just want to say something to you, and so you know where I'm coming from, maybe, because people don't never know where I'm coming from.
I never know where you're coming from.
I know. The attorneys in this case, I did have a discussion with one of the attorneys in this case representing Mr. Durst a while ago, maybe 2 years ago, I don't remember exactly, because an expert that a court appointed in a case of mine that the court then rejected, his own expert, is actually being used in the case, and they wanted to get the transcripts and all if I had them. And I had them, of course, because I keep all that stuff on my computer, right? So, but let me ask you about this. Here, that was from Chip Lewis from the past hearing, where he was saying that the government was really, or was in bed with the filmmakers, or the filmmakers were in bed with the government. That the filmmakers were agents of the government, or the government used the filmmakers as agents of the government. Either way, and therefore there should be no shield law. What say you?
So, one of the lines he used in his own PowerPoint, because he used a PowerPoint as well, was what were the functions that one of the producers or makers of the film said was to get justice in this case. And so that is to him an implication that therefore they're not doing look, when we do documentaries, and we see documentaries all the time, they're not always done, in a way that's in a perfect form, and they're not done in a way that gives you both sides. They're not obligated to.
Right.
The question is not whether they're seeking justice; it's whether or not they went further, and whether or not they worked so hard to work with the police and give them information that they became part and parcel. I think in many ways they did. Their arguments is they gave because they were getting back, and we can talk about it later.
So we're going to take a quick break, though, Julie, and you'll be back with me to discuss this. But right now, after the break, we're going to have a very special interview on the Kellen Winslow case with 2 documentarians that made a film about Me Too.